that it told. The very room in which Midwinter then stood was described, with the view on the garden, the window made to open on it, the bookshelves, the Niobe, and other more perishable ornaments which time had destroyed. Here, at variance with her brothers, shrinking from her friends, the widow of the murdered man had, on her own acknowledgment, secluded herself, without other comfort than the love and forgiveness of her father, until her child was born. The father's mercy and the father's recent death filled many verses, happily too vague in their commonplace expression of penitence and despair, to give any hint of the marriage story and Madeira to any reader who looked at them ignorant of the truth. A passing reference to the writer's estrangement from her surviving relatives, and to her approaching departure from Thorpe Ambrose, followed. Last came the assertion of the mother's resolution to separate herself from all her old associations, to leave behind her every possession, even to the most trifling thing she had, that could remind her of the miserable past, and to date her new life in the future from the birthday of the child who had been spared to console her, who was now the only earthly object that could still speak to her of love and hope. So the old story of passionate feeling that finds comfort in phrases rather than not find comfort at all was told once again. So the poem in the faded ink faded away to its end. Midwinter put the book back with a heavy sigh, and opened no other volume on the shelves. Here in the country house, or there on board the wreck, he said bitterly, the traces of my father's crime follow me, go where I may. He advanced toward the window, stopped, and looked back into the lonely, neglected little room. Is this chance? He asked himself. The place where his mother suffered is the place he sees in the dream, and the first morning in the new house is the morning that reveals it, not to him, but to me. Oh, Allan, Allan, how will it end? The thought had barely passed through his mind before he heard Allan's voice from the paved walk at the side of the house, calling to him by his name. He hastily stepped out into the garden. At the same moment, Allan came running round the corner, full of voluble apologies for having forgotten, in the society of his new neighbors, what was due to the laws of hospitality and the claims of his friend. "I really haven't missed you," said Midwinter, "and I'm very, very glad to hear that the new neighbors have produced such a pleasant impression on you already." He tried, as he spoke, to lead the way back by the outside of the house, but Allan's flighty attention had been caught by the open window and the lonely little room. He stepped in immediately. Midwinter followed, and watched him in breathless anxiety as he looked around. Not the slightest recollection of the dream troubled Allan's easy mind. Not the slightest reference to it fell from the silent lips of his friend. "Exactly the sort of place I should have expected you to hit on!" exclaimed Allan, gaily. "Small and snug and unpretending. I know you, Master Midwinter. You'll be slipping off here when the county families come visiting, and I rather think on those dreadful occasions you won't find me far behind you. What's the matter? You look ill and out of spirits. Hungry? Of course you are. unpardonable of me to have kept you waiting. This door leads somewhere, I suppose. Let's try a short cut into the house. Don't be afraid of my not keeping you company at breakfast. I didn't eat much at the cottage. I feasted my eyes on Miss Milroy, as the poets say. Oh, the darling, the darling! She turns you topsy-turvy the moment you look at her. As for her father, wait till you see his wonderful clock. It is twice the size of the famous clock at Strasbourg, and the most tremendous striker ever heard yet in the memory of man. Singing praises of his new friends in this strain at the top of his voice, Allan hurried Midwinter along the stone passages of the basement floor, which led, as he had rightly guessed, to a staircase communicating with the hall. They passed the servants' offices on the way. At the sight of the cook and the roaring fire disclosed through the open kitchen door, Allan's mind went off at a tangent, and Allan's dignity scattered itself to the four winds of heaven as usual. "Aha, Mrs. Gripper! There you are with your pots and pans, and your burning fiery furnace. One had need be Shadrach or Meshach, and the other fellow to stand over that. Breakfast as soon as ever you like. Eggs, sausages, bacon, kidneys, marmalade, watercresses, coffee, and so forth. My friend and I belong to the select few whom it is a perfect privilege to cook for. Voluptuaries, Mrs. Gripper, voluptuaries, both of us. You'll see," continued Allan, as they went on towards the stairs. "I shall make that worthy creature young again. I'm better than a doctor for Mrs. Gripper. When she laughs, she shakes her fat sides; and when she shakes her fat sides, she exerts her muscular system; and when she exerts her muscular system, ha! Here's Susan again. Don't squeeze yourself flat against the banisters, my dear. If you don't mind hustling me on the stairs, I rather like hustling you. She looks like a full blown rose when she blushes, doesn't she? Stop, Susan! I've orders to give. Be very particular with Mr. Midwinter's room. Shake up his bed like mad, and dust his furniture till those nice round arms of yours ache again. Nonsense, my dear fellow! I'm not too familiar with them. I'm only keeping them up to their work. Now then, Richard, where do we breakfast? Oh, here! Between ourselves, Midwinter, these splendid rooms of mine are a size too large for me. I don't feel as if I should ever be on intimate terms with my own furniture. My views in life are of the snug and slovenly sort, a kitchen chair, and a low ceiling. Man wants but little here below, and wants that little long. That's not exactly the right quotation, but it expresses my meaning, and will let alone correcting it till the next opportunity. "I beg your pardon," interposed Midwinter. "Here is something waiting for you which you have not noticed yet." As he spoke, he pointed a little impatiently to a letter lying on the breakfast table. He could conceal the ominous discovery which he had made that morning from Allan's knowledge, but he could not conquer the latent distrust of circumstances which was now raised again in his superstitious nature. The instinctive suspicion of everything that happened, no matter how common or how trifling the event, on the first memorable day when the new life began in the new house. Allan ran his eye over the letter, and tossed it across the table to his friend.